Welcome to my new series, Controversial Spiritual Opinions. I just want to preface this by saying, take what I say, and any spiritual opinion for that matter, with a grain of salt, okay? This is based on my own intuition and psychic insight, and I'd like to share this with you today in hopes that you start to expand your own perception around the mainstream narratives. They are mainstream for a reason, and sometimes it's good to think outside of the mainstream box that even in the spiritual community we have. If this resonates with you, great. If not, that's fine too. I really just want people to start thinking beyond the scope of what we're presented with. And also, there is validity in a lot of these mainstream narratives. It is mainstream for a reason because a lot of people are resonating with it. However, I personally have found that a lot of these mainstream narratives are twisted with a bit of false misinformation in them, and honestly, it only takes a little bit of shit for a glass of water to be undrinkable. And the last thing that I'll say is if you are resonating and agreeing with what someone says 100% of the time, you're probably not using your own discernment and intuition. So with that being said, let's get into this. So in the first episode of Controversial Spiritual Opinions, I want to talk about 5D and Ascension. So I personally believe that Ascension is not a collective process, as we've been taught to think of it as, in sort of this like rapture mentality where this group of people will be ascending and this other group will be left behind. I don't subscribe to that narrative. Ascension to me is an individualized inward journey. And it's important to realize that a lot of us are already ascended beings. We've already done this before. And when I say individualized, I mean that there's no yellow brick road. There's no one path to ascension. It's going to be individualized for that person's experience and that person's life. And I think it's silly to say that if you don't subscribe to some sort of narrative that you aren't going to ascend, because ascension is a natural process of evolution. As we embark on this process of letting go of the baggage and the heavier things that weigh us down, as we start to transmute and heal all of this perceived negativity in our lives, and as we start to ascend through the higher frequencies, we start to feel this natural floating and this natural lighter feeling, which can be described as ascension. Now, yes, we are all one in the sense that we all come from the same creational energy and authority. So this process naturally can feel like a collective process in that sense. But once you truly start to grasp the energy of this creational authority of what people call God and Source, it is a energy of duality. It is an energy of pure creation and also paradox. So the everything and the nothing, the life, death, rebirth. It's natural for humans to label things to try to explain their experiences, and I don't blame anyone for that. However, I just don't agree with telling people that they aren't going to ascend because of XYZ or whatever narrative. And I've spoken on this before, but it's just something that I continue to see daily in the spiritual community. Now, with that being said, let's move on to this whole 5D concept. The first thing that I'll say about this is a lot of us are way beyond 5D. Why are we limiting ourselves to 5D? And also, this whole labeling thing is just another example of this whole 5D, 3D, type of scenario. And I get it. It's natural to try to label things, and I've also done it. And it's time that I think we sort of expand beyond this. So again, I believe a lot of us are way past and beyond 5D. And to limit ourselves to that is sort of putting a glass ceiling above our evolution and expansion. We come from so much higher up realms. To say that 5D is the goal is just silly in my opinion. Another concept that I hear talked about in that context is the whole 3D and 5D split, and how there are two, different timelines and two different Earths, and which Earth are you going to be on? And, if you make the right choices, you get to come to the 5D Earth if you're, evolved and ascended enough. Honestly, I think a lot of this concept does have some validity to it. However, I think a lot of it is misinterpreted from channelings. I think a lot of it is also spiritual egoism to make yourself feel like you're better than other people because you're ascended and because you're going to this special place like heaven or something. And this is where the concept of the grand paradox comes into play. Because although ascension and evolution is a inward, internalized, individualized journey, we as human beings on this earth are all in this together. You are not going to go to some miracle, magical land where you don't have to worry about all the problems that everyone has to face here. There is going to be no 3D and 5D split in the sense where you are going to just go to some, magical land and not have to, again, worry about anything. And I think a lot of the misinterpretation of these sort of teachings are everyone externalizes everything. When we think of ascension, we think of this externalized process. When we think of 5D and 3D split, we think of this externalized process. When in fact, all of these are internalized processes. The 3D and the 5D split is happening within each and every one of us. We're starting to see where we may be acting within a 3D in some aspects of our lives, and we start to see other aspects that are starting to evolve and starting to move on. And it is an inward split that is happening on a collective level, which is so many factors are contributing to this right now. And now, with all of that being said, I do believe in timelines. I do believe in frequency shifts. I do believe in a lot of these things happening. I just want to point out that a lot of this is internalized. A lot of this is not some grandiose process, and a lot of it can be really uncomfortable and not this magical fairyland world that everyone is trying to push it as. And it can be very actually hurtful to people when you tell them that, they're getting left behind or they're not going to ascend or what have you. And it just causes more pain and suffering, which is more 3D. And yes, I do believe that the earth is going through this internalized process of ascension, of raising her frequency, whatever label you want to put on it. However, I do believe that there also is another side to this that a lot of people don't speak about. And I'll be making another video on this to go with eclipse season and all of the energies that are bombarding us right now in my next video. But let me know what you thought about this in the comments below. What is your opinion? I'm open to discussing this in a civilized manner. And if you want to leave an insult, don't bother, because I don't even reply to them, and I don't even let it get to me. So you're wasting your energy, and I'm gonna transmute that shit, period.